Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the NBA Front Office Show. We've got more NBA action. We'll talk all about the latest news around the NBA. All hoops, no hot takes. I'm Trevor Lane. You can find me on Twitter at Trevor_Lane, joined by Keith Smith at Keith Smith NBA. Keith, how you doing? And we've got a few things to get into today, including a peek at the standings.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're gonna go through some early season surprises, both good and bad, and just things that have caught our eye on the standings wise after we do some news and things like that. And yeah, for me, Trevor just gives you a sense of I'm catching up after my family was all in town and we were all over the state for soccer and stuff. I laid down and took what was intended to be a 20-minute nap, which ended up being 2+ hours. So apparently I needed it. So
you needed it, exactly.
It's I'm feeling good now. I'm up. I'm refreshed. I'm ready to go, and we're ready to talk some basketball.
All right. Well, let's start with Darius Garland. Some good news here. Maybe not good news for your Celtics here because they're playing the Cavs tonight. But Darius Garland, close to a return, may play tonight. Remember, was dealing with that eye injury that was not pleasant. That's for sure. But getting close to a return now, and again, may even play tonight. This is huge for Cleveland to get him back and up and running and everything. This could be a major difference maker for them because he was phenomenal last year. They relied on him a lot. Yes, Donovan Mitchell helps to mitigate that a little bit and help to weather the storm without him. But this Cavs team absolutely needs Darius Garland in there.
Yeah, absolutely. Not to step on our little standings talk later, but 5-1 without him. But obviously, they need him to be the team that they hoped to be when they were putting this roster together with the Mitchell trade included. And it's funny. I almost expect there to be a little bit of bumpy in his probably first handful of games back, just because Mitchell's going to be returning to a more off-ball role to some extent versus being truly, the on-ball guy. We'll see if they stick with Karis LeVert in the starting group or not. I'm very curious to see how they play that because that kind of puts you in a spot where you've got three really dominant on-ball guys there. But the good news is Darius Garland really doesn't want to be the offensive engine as far as shooting. He wants to be a playmaker and create. So I think eventually when they figure it all out, they figure out their spacing and their touches, it'll be fine. They'll get to where they need to be on the floor and they'll do stuff, but might be a little bit bumpy just for those first handful of games back. And of course that'll lead to the overreactions of are they better without Darius Garland and things like that. And even though we all know that's not true.
It's like last year with the Grizzlies are better without John Morant takes.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. Yeah. They're going to happen, right? If they go on any kind of little stumble here in his first handful of games back. I mean, maybe he comes back and they're just as good. I mean, clearly they're not going to win 5 out of every 6 games this season. That would be, record breaking pace. But I think they're going to be a very good team. The good team, good depth, good balance. They can play a lot of different ways now with that group. It's, they've got some interesting trade pieces if they want to go that route down the line. I really like this Cleveland team.
I saw the take out there today that, man, the Cavs have got to be regretting trading Lauri Markkanen in that deal to get Donovan Mitchell because of how well Markkanen has been playing. And I'm just thinking, no, not really. Like, I understand that he's been playing better than you would have expected with the Jazz. And credit to him, he's been fantastic for them. The Jazz have been winning. We'll talk about them when we get into our standings watch. But Cleveland's been really good. It's not like Cleveland's been struggling and they're looking across the way and saying, oh, man, if we just had Lauri Markkanen. I think they feel pretty good about what they got in Donovan Mitchell here.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think they are, perfectly content with the trade that they made. And I think it's one of those ones where today, right now, 2 weeks into the season, it looks like it's a win for both teams. We'll see ultimately where that goes down the line. But I mean, we both, I think, thought the Markkanen signing last year, right, happened late as part of that. I think it was ultimately a 3-team sign and trade maneuver where Portland got involved in that too. I think we both thought it was weird, but I don't think either one of us disliked it at all, him going to from Chicago to Cleveland. And then last year it worked pretty good. It was weird at times watching the 3 7-footers run around together, but it was, worked out pretty good. So, but yeah, I mean, obviously Donovan Mitchell, I think he's in the first 6 games, I want to say been over 30 points in 5 of them. I think they're okay. I don't think Cleveland has many regrets.
It's just indicative of the era that we live in where, like, if another team has success with the players that you sent out, that equates to, well, you lost the trade, right? Like everybody wants to see whatever you sent out is nowhere near as valuable as the stuff you got. And that's the only way you really win a trade. That's not really how the NBA works, though.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the Kawhi Leonard George Hill trade way back in the day,
Oh,
where
yeah.
it's like, oh man, the Pacers must be kicking themselves. Well, the Pacers had, really one of their best franchise runs for multiple years with George Hill as a big part of it. So yeah, I mean, maybe they would have been better with Kawhi and won, but we also don't know, does Kawhi develop the way he did, like he did in San Antonio? So
Sure.
yeah, I don't. Some trades are obviously really bad. And that's an off-season show. We can really get into some truly terrible trades, but I think for the most part, trades are never quite as one-sided as they seem, especially not, again, 2 weeks into a league year.
All right, let's move on. Let's chat a little bit about streaming. We talked a little bit about streaming on our live show yesterday in the NBA, looking at selling their streaming rights, and got into all the different variables involved with consuming streaming content. But Overtime Elite and G League Ignite are going to have streams of their games. Looks like potentially Amazon involved there. Look, Scoot Henderson is in the mix here. Look, you saw what happened with Victor Wembanyama and Scoot and the demand for that. I think this is fantastic that we're going to see these players out there available on streaming, and they're going to get that much more exposure before some of these guys make their way into the NBA.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think what we're seeing here is let's talk the G League Ignite part, because that one I think is a little bit easier.
Yeah.
Just like they announced probably 2 weeks ago now, is right around the start of the year, that they were going to stream on the new NBA app all of Metropolitan's 92, Victor Wembanyama's team. They're going to stream all of his games. They're now going to stream a selected amount of Ignite games. And there's going to be a handful more Ignite games that are shown on the ESPN family of networks. So mostly it's like ESPN2, excuse me, I have the hiccups. ESPN2, ESPNU. I don't know if ESPN News has worked in there. Maybe the Ocho will be a real thing, and they'll throw a couple games on that one. But they've been doing that for a little bit now. The ESPN has been showing G League games. A lot of times the G League plays at odd times. They might play in the middle of the afternoon on a weekday because a lot of it's based around travel and
they're not as worried about getting a big crowd in there.
Exactly. Yeah. Some of them, like the Lakers, play. There's no like true fan crowd allowed in their arena because it's a practice facility, where they play some of their games. So it is with this though, it is very much the idea is let's get more eyes on Scoot Henderson and Victor Wembanyama. And then kind of out of nowhere on the other side, Amazon reaches this agreement with Overtime Elite, which, to be clear, is its own separate entity, not involved with the NBA. And if people aren't familiar with that, it is they basically started a basketball academy for high-end high school basketball players. And when I say high end, I mean like the highest of ends, like fairly confident they're going to go pro. The idea was come to school at Overtime Elite, and we're gonna give you a contract. So they're making a little bit of money. Most of these players, if not all of them, won't be eligible to then go play in college because they've taken money to play their sport. But it is also, there is a school component involved in that. And it's basically, we're going to try to crank out kids and get them ready for professional careers. Yep. And Overtime Elite was very successful with that last year. They had a handful of kids pop this past year, and a couple of them hit the draft. They've got two kids this year, Eamon and I believe you said Asor Thompson. They're twins. They're about 6'7". They're guard forward players that people are really excited. Eamon Thompson believed to be if anybody's going to crack the Wembanyama Scoot Henderson duo at the top, it could be him. Probably not is the best. I see it in understanding, talking with people, but he's pretty high up on people's list as a number 3. There's a lot of people I know keep saying it's not just a 2-player draft. Like, this kid's pretty good too, but then his brother is also considered to be a top 10 player. So Amazon's going to stream their games. I believe it's a 20-game package over each of the next 3 years. They've also got kids who are like 15, 16-year-olds that are going to be kind of the next wave that come in. They're going to build a web series, just like they did around a couple different soccer teams they've done. I know they did one for Tottenham. They did one for Leeds. They did one for, I believe it was Manchester City. So they're going to build kind of that. package out to watch them. So yeah, pretty cool all around that we're going to get to see a lot of stuff. And they're investing in Overtime Elite, which I'm sure was only a minor little part of this as well. But now, and for us as basketball guys, give me all the ways to see these kids possible.
Right.
I don't want to be going to look at cell phone footage that's then uploaded to YouTube or TikTok because it's like all right, cool. Let me piece that together, and then half the game the person's like, oh, I gotta text, so they're looking down and you're looking at somebody's feet.
Hard to evaluate somebody's game like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, this is great. I think it's awesome. That we're going to be able to see all these kids that before they come into the league that aren't going the normal college path, right? You can find Duke and UNC and UCLA. Those games you can find those all over the place. These games, not always easy to find, but this year they'll be far easier to find.
Exactly. And that last point right there is why I think this is so big for the NBA, that we see more and more exposure for the G League, for Overtime Elite, for whatever, because there are becoming these alternative paths. But the downside to the alternative paths is you don't get like March Madness. And I'm not saying this is ever going to be that. It's not going to be anywhere close. No. But the downside is you come into the NBA and you don't have as big of a name because you weren't on a college team that made a big run in the tournament and you become a national name, right? Like that has value. And this is at least a step towards mitigating that to a small degree. Again, this is never going to be anywhere near that, but it's at least getting these guys out there and getting a little more exposure. So ideally, when a guy gets into the league, your team drafts that guy. This is not the first time that you're hearing that name.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was asked on a radio spot this morning are things like this they've already proven to be a legitimate basketball path, but from a recognition, branding path, as these things become bigger, is this going to kill college basketball? And, and I said, one is the NBA doesn't really care if they kill off college basketball. I don't think that's, any concern of theirs, but what I think this really is college basketball has been our feeder system into the NBA for years, for our entire lifetimes, and it's only just now starting to be a different direction. We're probably never going to get to the European soccer model as far as they identify a kid at 8 years old, sign him, get him in their academy program, and then sign him to his first professional contract when he's like 15. I don't think we're ever going to get to that point with professional teams. It's just not really how sports in this country work. But I do think there's the potential that this is kind of sort of the replacement for that, especially Overtime Elite portion, where it is, hey, come here when you're 14, 15, 16, 17, and you're going to do schoolwork, you're going to do all that stuff, but basketball will be the focus. There's going to be 8 hours of basketball stuff every day. And it's not just practice and drills. It's going to be, we're going to watch film. We're going to do training. We're going to teach you how to, to really treat your body right at a young age and all that stuff. And I think that is the replicated model of the academy model that works in European soccer. I think we may see that be the direction this goes in this country, because that's where we're never going to get quite there, but this is a let's call it a pseudo and suitable replacement to that model if we want to get these kids pro experience right away.
And I could say, as a former educator, it's I think it's a good thing to have options. Options out there for different paths. There are so many different learning styles out there, so many different things that will work for kids. And so having the different paths that you can take, not even just speaking in terms of sports, but in terms of how you are educated and what type of educational path you take, it's a good thing to have different roads to travel down and not just one, this is the only way. And if this doesn't suit you, too bad. I think it's a good thing for these kids to have different choices.
Yeah, and college basketball is not going anywhere. It's too big. They'll adapt. They will start figuring out ways to make sure kids are there. And to your point, March Madness is far more about the March Madness experience than it has ever been about the individual players or anything like that. Like, that's fun for us as NBA guys. We don't get to watch them all the time, but it's how many times have you gotten wrapped up in a March Madness game? There's no NBA prospects, but it's a number 14 seed is about to take down a number 3 seed, and it's like, oh man, I never knew about southeast west directional state before, but now I'm the biggest fan on the planet, right, for the next 5 minutes of crunch time because I want them to beat the the blue blood powerhouse college. Like, that's what March Madness is about. It's not necessarily all about the players.
Absolutely. We also have a transaction here. The Spurs signed Jordan Hall I'll admit I haven't dug into this a lot. I don't know a heck of a lot about Jordan Hall, but is this a corresponding move to the Josh Primo situation?
Hey, from the roster spot
Yeah.
wise, absolutely. Yeah. Jordan Hall was with the Spurs in Summer League, played 5 games with them, looked kind of okay. I didn't play a lot. Every once in a while, you'll see a team, they really like a kid. They may not play him a lot in Summer League just because they're kind of trying to keep it quiet if they don't have him signed. He signed a 2-way. He was the guy they waived right at the start of the season from his 2-way when they picked up Charles Bassey after he had been waived by the 76ers on a 2-way. So a big kid. He's about 6'8". Really a wing, though. He played at St. Joe's for 2 years. He was 2-year starter for St. Joe's. And last year, just to give you a sense of kind of his all-around ability, remember, I said he's 6'8", 14.1 points per game, 6.7 rebounds, and 5.8 assists per game. So the college level, those are pretty big numbers, especially for guys 6'8". So, and the assists aren't more than a 1-year pop. He averaged 5.6 assists as a freshman. So there's some talent there. He can really play. He's also only 20. Doesn't turn 21 until mid-January. So I like this for the Spurs. Get him in. You'll see what it looks like. It's reportedly a rest of the season, 1 year prorated, non-guaranteed contract. So we'll see where it goes from here with Jordan Hall. But yeah, roster-wise, this is the Josh Primo replacement. Bring him in. They've been going through a lot of injuries. Blake Wesley, we talked yesterday. He's out, or 2 days ago, maybe, I can't remember, but he's out 6 to 8 weeks. One of their first-round picks. So that he's down. Devin Vassell has been dealing with some injuries. So get another guy in and see what it looks like.
Yeah. Again, these are the kind of guys that you want to take a chance on. So there's
turn the bottom of that roster, right? Well, I know when we get into the standings, I was going to say you're a bad team. Turn the bottom of the roster. Well, the Spurs right now aren't a bad team. So
yeah, maybe
we'll
not
talk about that.
Yeah, let's get into the standings here. I've got a question for you though, and this is something that's been top of mind, and this is non-basketball related, but how early is too early to transition over to Christmas season?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Are we there? Are we allowed to? I don't know.
All right, so I'm going to give you this is going to be more in-depth thoughts than I think you were looking for. Here in Orlando, because we're in the theme park capital of the world, it literally happens overnight from Halloween to November 1st. Basically, everywhere pulls all the Halloween stuff out, and it becomes Winter Wonderland on November 1st, because anybody who comes in the month of November, they want them to have that feeling, right, of the holiday season. I used to be a big the weekend after Thanksgiving guy. That's when you put up the tree, put up all the lights. I like to jokingly say it's your annually scheduled fight within the family of like, that's not how the lights go. That's how we've always done it. No, it isn't, right? And it's just like, put it on the calendar, the days after Thanksgiving. Now, we every year play in a pretty big soccer tournament the days after Thanksgiving. So we've started inching it a little earlier. And we had a neighbor during the pandemic who was like, look, everything sucks right now. And they did it like early in November. Yep. And he's like, I just wanted it to feel good and be something to be happy about. And then like now the last couple of years in our neighborhood, like I'm not going to be surprised if we have a couple houses putting their lights and stuff up as early as this weekend. So my theory is do whatever you want. Whatever makes you feel happy. It's weird. I always felt like we go into so much effort to decorate the house for Christmas, if that's your thing. And it's like 1 month and then it all comes down. If you want to drag a few extra weeks out of it, have at it, have fun. I think it's great.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with that. I tend to subscribe to the day after Thanksgiving, Black Friday. That's when you're doing anything every way. But then I look at, we've got those some years, like what if Thanksgiving is always the fourth Thursday in November, if I'm correct here. And then what happens, but what if say November 1st is a Friday, then Thanksgiving winds up being pushed pretty deep into November. And then it just feels like it's too late. So I can understand in that scenario, but under normal circumstances, I'm like the day after Thanksgiving. So you go to the store and it's already just Christmas everywhere. And I love Christmas, but I don't want it stretched out too far
Yeah,
because I think it takes away a little bit of it.
Yeah, I don't want to get to Christmas and then be like, ugh, okay, get this over with already.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I don't have any problem with that. And obviously we're going through the clock change here in
Yeah, that too.
the next little bit, and and that's gonna be a whole new thing for us here in Florida. They voted and actually passed through. They're in process. I can't remember when it happens, but they're getting rid of daylight savings time
Oh,
here in
awesome.
Florida. So yeah, so it's gonna be a little confusing because then it's going to be like, wait, are we now matched with the rest of the East Coast?
That's
Like,
confusing,
no,
but I
that's
can
not.
tell you from spending some years living in Arizona, it's so nice.
Just
It's so
oh
nice.
yeah,
You don't have to deal with it, and it's just and you just
and if
move
you
right
look at
along.
the map, Florida is far enough west. I think people think it's like super on the East Coast, but like we're pretty far west from like the northern East Coast
Mhm.
that like it's not going to change much for us, like sun versus
Right.
sunset, sunrise, sunset, and all that stuff. So yeah, I just give me on one time. I don't want to keep changing the clocks, especially too. We're always going to have dogs, and man, nothing messes up the dogs more than a time change. Like
Absolutely.
they get absolutely like bonkers,
Dogs and kids, man.
right? Yeah, kids too. Yeah, right. Yeah, it's like no, I can get up now, and it's like no, you're 2 hours early. Go back to
Right,
bed.
exactly.
Exactly. Yep. So all right.
All right, let's take a look at the
Well, now
standings
we've
here.
angered everybody. Like, talk basketball.
We're gonna get the comments. Skip ahead to the basketball talk
Right.
and then this time. All right, so looking at the Eastern Conference standings, I just want to go through what is surprising right now. Is there anything that you're looking at that you're not expecting to see at this stage? And again, most teams have played somewhere between 6 and 8 games. It's super early. There's a long way to go, but what are we thinking? Just shy of 10% of the way done through the season.
Yeah, I think the things that jump out are the Heat and the Nets in that bottom 5 outside of the playoff picture. Right now, not even in the play-in. Obviously, the Heat are a half game out. The Nets are a game and a half. So that doesn't really mean it. They're a good week from being in the top 6 probably. But that I don't think, even if you thought the Nets might not be good, I don't think anybody thought 2 and 6 kind of start, which is why they don't have Steve Nash as their head coach anymore, along with other reasons that we talked in depth yesterday. That's probably the big thing that immediately jumps out at me, and I hate to go with a negative, but the only reason why I'm kind of going there is the rest of this looks kind of sort of ish what I thought it might. A bunch of teams that are very similar, kind of compact record wise, and a bunch of teams that are pretty good but not great, kind of right behind them, and that's what I think it may be, as we run through the entirety of the season.
This is where too your schedule matters a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas by like say the midway point, it's kind of evened out. Where if you've had a really light schedule early on, it's going to make a big difference in the standings at this point. So there's going to be a lot of variance with that. I look at the Bucks being 6-0, like without Chris Middleton. That's impressive that they are 6-0 at this point. The Cavs having the best point differential in the NBA without Darius Garland for a good chunk of it. That's also impressive, or in the Eastern Conference at least. I haven't looked at the point differential for the West, but that's also something I'm looking at. And then the Brooklyn Nets, like you said, being where they are, the Miami Heat as well. Those two being below the playoff line, that's pretty surprising. Although I would be surprised if the season finished that way. You can see this kind of variance early on. I would expect that we'll see. My guess would be Washington and Charlotte drop out and Miami and Brooklyn be in the mix by the end of it.
But it's funny, you push Miami and Brooklyn up, take Charlotte and Washington out, and that's it. I think those are the 10 teams, right? I think that may be, there's your East. What your order is, I don't really necessarily know. Obviously, let's be, we talked about them a little bit to start the show when we talked Darius Garland, but to give them their due, Cavs at 5-1, phenomenal start for them. Best scoring differential, I think, in the entire league, but definitely in the Eastern Conference. The Bucks 6-0. Chris Middleton assigned to the G League herd and going to start practicing soon here, so he's probably coming around. So but I don't really know anybody didn't think the Bucks weren't a title contender. But yeah, Cleveland off to that good start, and then it's just a whole bunch of teams that are mashed together. So fun though for sure in the East.
All right, let's go take a peek at the Western Conference, where you've got some more bizarre things happening out west. I mean, right off the
Yeah,
bat.
this one is the surprising one.
Oh,
If the
my
East were like,
goodness.
yeah, there's a couple. The West is like, what is happening here?
Exactly. I mean, you look and you've got Utah and San Antonio, the 3
Mhm.
and the 4 seed respectively. Now, San Antonio having a negative point differential, does that foretell troubles to come? Is that what we're expecting? Like, is this just early season, small sample size? I feel like there's a different, like we
Yeah.
tend to lump the two together, and I feel like there is maybe a difference between Utah and San Antonio, where Utah I'm questioning how sustainable it is. San Antonio, I don't think I buy it.
No, so they're having a negative point differential 7 games in is mostly driven by they got beat by 29 points, I think it was in their
Sure.
first game of the season, or it was something along. Let me look to be sure. 27 points, 129 to 102. So yeah, when we're this low into the season, it is very it is a time where we are those big numbers pop, either
Mhm.
positive or negative, right? They pull you one direction. But it also is, I don't expect them to be very good. So it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, this is why it happened. Also, interesting enough, they're 5-2, but I don't know if you know this. 3 of their 7 games, they've already played the Minnesota Timberwolves 3 times
That's
this
weird.
season. They're going to play them one more time, and it's the next to last day of the regular season. So this is when the NBA doing what they've done to cut down travel with those like mini series and
Mhm.
you play in the same city twice in a row, kind of Major League Baseball style. That's nice from the cutting down the travel. But if you hit a team at the right or wrong time, depending on your point of view, it kind of really influences it one way or the other, right?
Sure.
And there were a lot of couple playoff match where people were, oh well, this team really handled this team in the regular season. It's like, yeah, but they played 3 games in the span of 2 weeks when somebody was out with a
And
sprained
it was in
ankle.
November. Yeah. Right.
Exactly. So let's not, like, should it come down to Spurs Timberwolves later in the year, like we want to be like, oh, well, the Spurs got them, 2 out of 3 already. So, yeah. But that said, again, giving them their due, 5-2. I thought it might be Christmas not to go back to our previous conversation about Christmas time, but it might be then when they're hitting that 5th win. So,
Yeah.
and here they are with it right out of the gate. So Pop was just throwing us all off the scent at media day when he was like, don't bet on us. Maybe he knew maybe he went and put in the big bet. Right. And he's
Do you
like,
think he
I
did?
am going to retire.
I am. Yeah. He
Yeah.
says, this is it. This is my moment. This is my
Yep.
opportunity here.
I'm
Nobody
gonna
knows
throw
what we've
those.
got.
I'm gonna throw 10 million on us to win the title. Yeah, to be clear, I don't think that happened. That would be
No.
highly illegal and a
Yes.
major scandal. But
Absolutely.
yeah, and yeah, the Jazz. How about the Blazers though? 5-1. That's
Yeah.
all surprising too. Especially with Damian Lillard out already this year with an injury. So I mean, you've definitely got 3 teams. Blazers, I think most people thought be in the play-in mix, but Jazz and Spurs. We thought if they were battling for standing position, it'd be at the other end of this, down where
Yes.
the Rockets are hanging out.
And then I mean, look at the Oklahoma City Thunder sitting in
Mm-hmm.
7th, 4-3.
Absolutely.
Wouldn't have
Yep.
anticipated that. They have a positive point differential as well. Shea Gilgeous-Alexander has been tremendous. They're on a 4-game winning streak for crying out loud.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean they've been great too, and wouldn't
They've done
expect.
that without guys in the lineup for some of
Yeah,
the part of it too. Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
so they've been impressive. And then down at the bottom of the table, the Clippers, the Warriors, and the Lakers, all underneath the playoff line right
Mm-hmm.
now. I mean, the Clippers and the Warriors are the 2 most surprising there. Like
Oh,
Lakers, we
without a
had
doubt.
pegged anywhere from like 6 to 10 or something.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, 1-5 is still maybe a little. They've had a brutal schedule, but still.
Yeah.
But Clippers and Warriors, I don't think anybody would have projected that 8 games into the season or 7 games in as it is for the Clippers.
So it's super early, right? We're like
Sure.
1/10 of the way through the year. Are you worried at all about the Clippers or the Warriors? Like, because I know we both had them pretty high in our standings. I think we both had the Clippers in the finals.
Mhm.
Are you worried about that at all with either one of them?
The Warriors, no. The
Mm-hmm.
Warriors, I feel like they'll be, because we've got such a long history of them just being the Warriors. The Clippers, again, I expected them to. I mean, you would look at it and you say, well, Kawhi's been out and Paul George, and but this was the team that we said they've got the depth to weather the storm of losing their stars. And so far that hasn't really been the case. So that's a little bit concerning. I know their 3-point shooting has been particularly low compared to what you would expect it to be. It's not been like Lakers level low, but it's been bad compared to what you would think they would be. I don't know if maybe there's some progression to the mean there if that comes up at some point, and that can certainly level things out for them. But I'm not worried at all about the Warriors. I'm at least keeping an eye on the Clippers to see what's really going on here. I mean, -7 in point differential. That's pretty big.
Yeah, to the surprise of no one, we're again simpatico with our thoughts here. It's it's the Warriors. Yeah, I'm a little worried about the Warriors' depth. It just doesn't look so great. So I'm a little bit concerned with that. The Clippers portion though, yeah, I am really like, what is this doesn't look good. We know now Kawhi's going to be out for at least basically another week before we'll see him again. They're the only team in the league that's not cracking 100 points per game right now, which is a little concerning because offense is up everywhere. I mean, just look at some of these point totals on the screen here right now. You have multiple teams that are up over 115 points per game. So yeah, I'm nervous. I am nervous on the Clippers. Now again, a good week, they could blow that out of the water and it could be perfectly fine. But I am, it's got me, a little worried. Yeah, at the bottom, Houston, right, thought they might be the worst team in the conference. I still think in the end, Oklahoma City will end up down there. Spurs, Jazz, we'll see. Hey, your guys, let's focus on the far right column. It's a one there, right?
They got that win, and now there's optimism about Russell Westbrook coming off the bench and whether or not that will work.
Schedule will lighten up a little bit. So
yeah, I've been saying for a while, the Lakers fans were not happy with me, but I kept saying the 3-point shooting will come around. They shot 43% against the Nuggets. They're not going to do that every single night, but they're also not a 21% 3-point shooting team, which is what we saw through the first 5 games or so. So I think that will average out, and that may be the case for the Clippers as well, where they're at 30% right now. I would expect that to tick up, and some of these things will flatten out as time goes by. I do think the small sample size issue is in effect here.
And what I always do, and I did this with Celtics fans last season as they did not play well early, was, especially with the Lakers part of it. Yeah, 1-5, they're exactly 3.5 games out of home court advantage in the first round. Right. So it's just, I mean, yeah, it's not, they're not, 1 in 10. And it's like, crap, we're already buried a little bit here and you have a ton of ground to make up. Like the Pelicans last year, they were so bad early that it was a little bit surprising they even made up the ground to get into the play-in. But that's where you just got to avoid. Yeah. If a couple weeks from now, we're talking about the Lakers and they're 2-10, all right, it's time to start having different conversations, right? Because that's starting to put yourself in a hole you may not dig out of. Right now, you're fine with this, and then let's take Oklahoma City out of the mix, a little bit there, because I think they'll eventually fall out. It's again, like in the East, it's just a bunch of teams crammed together in the middle. And I think that's kind of where we're going to see. In Phoenix, I don't know. We all kind of thought they were going
to drop off.
Yeah.
They would, they had so much drama over the offseason and everything. And then, Jay Crowder and and Monty Williams and DeAndre Ayton and all this stuff that was going on. And they're just like, nope. Best point differential in the league or in the in the West, and they're 6-1, and they're just cruising.
Yeah, it really is kind of crazy with that. I mean, yeah, and they gosh, now it's slipping my mind. Oh, Minnesota last night. It ended up being a 9-point win, but it never really felt like it was kind of in danger when I watched that. It felt like they kind of did what they want to do. Already too, Chris Paul was pretty bad to start the season. Didn't look like himself, and now he's figuring out. So yeah, I mean, just kind of doing their thing there. But yeah, Utah, San Antonio. Let's see. Let's do this every couple weeks. We'll check in and see, and if and again, if in a couple weeks, the Jazz are let's say 12-4 or 10-6 or something, then it's like, all right, maybe it is a little bit more real than we thought it was going to be.
Right. Absolutely. Something to keep an eye on moving forward here. All right. I think that about wraps things up for today's show. Everybody, thank you so much for watching or for listening. Make sure you are subscribing to the YouTube channel and, of course, over on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever it is that you listen to podcasts. Got more games coming up tonight, and we'll keep an eye on how everything breaks down around the NBA. We'll be back with more tomorrow. Till then, see ya and stay safe.